The German invasion of France and Belgium on August 4, 1914, ended in 6 weeks with a full retreat from the Marne. Key decisions taken by the commanders in charge of the various armies are what decided it. After the war in 1870, the Germans laid out a plan to invade France and Belgium. This plan was called the Schlieffen Plan. Field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen devised the plan by invading France through the Netherlands and Belgium rather than across the common border. The Schlieffen Plan determined that there would be a strong right wing extending as far as possible into Belgium, enveloping the French left wing. Helmuth von Moltke, in charge of the German army, did not think he needed to go as far over as the Schlieffen Plan had suggested. The Schlieffen Plan was to lure the French into Germany and attack through Belgium and outflank them into Paris, destroying the French. In August, the main spearhead of the German army crossed into Belgium. The Belgian army was only 1/10 the size of the invading German force and was swiftly overwhelmed in several days. The Germans received the first blow to these plans when the British declared war to defend Belgium. In France, 1914, the army was commanded by General Joseph Joffre. The French knew that if Germany attacked through Belgium, the British would join the war, and they would get help with their northern border. They also knew that Russia, their ally, would take a long time to mobilize, so they would have to attack Germany first and occupy as much of Germany as possible to give the Russians time to get mobilized. Joffre put his Fifth Army close to the Belgian border. He would attack Germany around Mentz on the 17th of August. 3 days of pressure, the Germans decimated the French forces. The French then retreated. In the north, the German army was approaching the French-Belgian border. The British then landed a force of 80,000 men in France under the command of Sir John French. They headed across northern France into Belgium to the town of Mons. They ran into the Germans accidentally and they began a long retreat that would take 13 days and 200 miles to the south to the river Marne. The Second Army approached Charleroi, which is on the Sambre River. The town has a bunch of small industrial villages along the river, making it quite difficult to fight its way through. It took 3 days of vicious fighting to push the French back up the heights. The Third Army, commanded by von Hausen, drove down the Meuse Valley alongside Charleroi. He sent an advance guard that got across the river at Givet, and Hausen recalled that advance guard, which was a deciding factor for the Germans to lose the war. He then fought his way to the Second Army, losing the opportunity to corner the French Fifth Army. The German Sixth Army was almost exclusively Bavarian. When they received their orders after the war started, the instructions were unclear what to do. They had 3 scenarios in which they could choose. They could retreat and draw the French deep into Germany. The French would have been encouraged to send in more men because they would be advancing. That would ensure that there was very little French on the German right wing. The second scenario was that the Germans inflict a major defeat on the French, in which case the French would be forced to reinforce, causing very little focus on the German right wing. The third scenario was what they got, which was a tactical victory, which really didn't do anything for the Germans and started the trench war that followed for 4 years. In the north, the Germans seemed unstoppable. In the south, the French had retreated to their fortified positions along the French-German border. The Germans then chased the French into their fortified positions and were forced to fall back with large casualties. With the Germans stopped, Joffre turned his attention to the north. He took men from the east front, secure in his fortified positions, and sent them towards Paris. It would be a critical part in the Battle of Marne. The French railway system gave the French a critical advantage over the Germans, who would have to march hundreds of miles to the south to reach the battlefield. Joffre could redeploy his troops to the north in just a few days by using the trains. When the Germans got near the river Marne, the Sixth French Army with 200,000 men awaited. The 6th French Army recognized a mistake that the 1st German Army made, and the Germans exposed their right flank. By September 6th, they were essentially being confronted by the 6th French Army, and by turning to meet them, they created an opening between them and the 2nd German Army. That was the opening the French and British were able to take advantage of and put the Germans on their heels, putting the Germans in retreat to the Aisne River, thus starting the trench warfare to the north. Scenario 1. The 6th German Army retreats, allowing the French into their trap inside of Germany, causing the French to send more men into the fight and not sending men to their left flank. When the Germans attack on their right flank, there is no new army in Paris to stop them. Scenario 2. Van Housen's Third Army drives down the Meuse Valley alongside Charleroi. He crosses the river at Givet. The French army would have been cornered by the Meuse River and the Sambre River. Behind the French lines, the Germans could have destroyed the French Fifth Army, acquiring for themselves distinct numeral superiority, and would be able to drive down southeast with no one stopping them. Had the Germans defeated the French in 1914, then 4 terrible years of war would have been avoided and 10 million lives would have been saved. It would have transformed the map of Europe and the violent history of the 20th century. Europe would have passed without 2 world wars. The world, as we know it, would have been a very different place.